Elden Ring's DLC, Shadow of the Erdtree, is filled with larger-than-life, lightning-fast bosses. So today, we're gonna slow down, analyze, and appreciate the frame data of some of the DLC's biggest, baddest, and craziest bosses and mini-bosses. Obviously, DLC spoilers. These are going to be ranked in order from how much I think the community struggled with each boss, from least to most, and you can let me know if you think I got it wrong. This is Shadow of the Erdtree like you've never seen it before. Let's do it. Furnace Golem. Right off the bat, the grab radius is about as big as you'd expect in the front where the fingers would close, but weirdly extends behind the actual hand so you can roll through it entirely and then you get teleported back into its hand. Beyond that, his stomp attack, which I always thought you absolutely had to jump to avoid damage, but turns out you can barely roll through it, but it is much tighter. But speaking of jumping and how weird this game handles that, everyone's seen Zully the Witch explain jumping makes your lower body hit capsules invulnerable to damage, but your arms and head will still take damage if struck. Well, you can't tell me that you aren't covered head to toe in hitboxes in this. So why does jumping give you full invincibility all of a sudden, even when you are right next to the impact zone, engulfed in flames? Well, your lower half invincibility is really just half the story. There are some specific hitboxes, every single one of these, for example. They're each marked with an action flag that basically means you will not take damage if you're jumping, even if you are completely covered in hitboxes. I personally don't get how a little hop and a skip prevents this from happening, but it does. But you know when it doesn't? 2 seconds later, when he does a double leg jump instead of a stomp. For some reason, all of these cannot damage you while jumping, but all of these can. I don't know, it confused the hell out of me the first time I played, trying to figure out when jumping was safe, when it wasn't. I think at least being that close to the landing zone of the stomp, it'd probably not be jumpable, but maybe that's just me. But lastly, for this guy, I never realized his opening fire kick attack isn't just a wall of flames. It's actually dozens of flaming boulders, each with their own hit detection. So if you've got the balls to just walk through it without rolling at the end of your no-hit run, you're a gaming god. Romina Saint of the Bud. Bug Girl has some really weird stuff going on. They really nailed her body hitboxes, following along her curving body, except for this particular part just sticking out like a sore thumb. It's never going to be perfect with a boss that has attacking appendages that warp this much. Like, you can see it's not perfect in this part of the animation, but it gets to where it needs to be when it matters. But the issue compounds because they seem to have used the exact same sockets for hitboxes on this move as the others. I mean, what is that? Just use a big sphere hit detection on the entire body. If this is your other option, just make it a big circle. What is this? Like, half the body is not even remotely covered. There's a giant extending hit capsule from its stinger, and then nothing until you get to the other side of it. This boss seems like one of the most just thrown in there encounters in the entire game. And yes, it's got one of those little spinneroonies, which I'll admit, those don't really affect anything. They're just fun, so keep them coming, FromSoft. To finish this one, here's the record for the most cutesy attack FromSoft has ever made. No, all those are not hit detectors. They are spawn points for thousands of butterflies. Very demure, very mindful, very dangerous. The worthless brick of a machine we all had in our computer room growing up just shit its pants just thinking about running this game. Scadutree Avatar. This skadooshbag. Full disclaimer, this boss was my personal least favorite in the entire game. To start, it has one of the wildest discrepancies of model size to hit capsule in the game. Look at that little twig in there. Now, it does have some redeeming qualities, like a really cool destructible arena that I did not appreciate when I was in game, and some pretty sick visuals on some other attacks, but that does not make up for this one attack that made me want to throw a brick through my monitor. Because it does it again and again, which apparently was not enough because eventually it does this. A ridiculous triple explosion combo that will absolutely annihilate your health if not handled well. And if you're wondering why I didn't edit out the footage that you're watching right now, it's because it did it again 15 seconds later. Now, the actual explosion is only 8 frames, which is no big deal. It's the fact that there's no visual indicator of when exactly that explosion is going to happen. Watch 0 animation changes as we approach the explosion on the event graph, which is this bullet behavior. Okay, now the explosion has happened and the model responds, but it's too late, you're dead. With this, and especially the triple explosion variant of it, it feels like you're playing a rhythm game, but you just can't see when the next move is coming down the screen, and so you just have to have a perfectly tuned internal clock to know when to do anything at the right moment. What's the point when the damn thing can just fucking explode at any moment? God, all right, moving on. But briefly, if you are enjoying the video, please subscribe so you can see more. Also, likes and comments go a long way for a small channel, but back to the video. Up next is Putrescent Knight. This guy is a bit of a two-timer. Let me show you why. He throws his boomerang sword at you, pretty standard stuff. But when it comes back to his hand, it splits into 2. I expected one to disappear and the other one continues on as the sword he uses, but then they came back together for some reason, just leaving me with even more questions. He also 2 times when it gets off the horse. You're supposed to think his horse is the one that comes out of the muck to attack you, but it's actually new horses being spawned each time, while the actual horse connected to the model just scooting boots along below. Oh, and the attack horses carry their hitboxes underneath the ground, so if you're goofing off with out-of-bounds glitches, you're never safe. But overall, his big phase 2 attack is fun to watch, but is actually pretty chill for what's coming later in the game. Golden Hippo. FromSoft games are weird because you may think bosses I struggled with were easy, but I personally had 0 issues with this Golden Hippo, even though everybody seems to bitch about it. The hit detection on this boss really isn't as bad as you would think. Nothing much larger than what you would expect it to be, and hit detection functions just as it should. Even its standard melee bite attack doesn't even cover its entire jaws, making some attacks just miss due to lack of range. You'll notice your character can literally be inside its mouth before finally registering a hit. The main complaints with this big lug has to do with the camera, for one, because you can slip into the boss and not realize what he's doing. In 1 second, you're in the thing's neck, totally fine, and then the next, the entire neck is a giant hit capsule. But besides that, all you can see online is gripes about this grab attack. You know the one. So this yellow hit detector is not the grab range. It's just a standard hit detector. The actual hit detector is surprisingly difficult to show visually, but I ran a bunch of tests to give you a perspective on where it actually is. Its farthest range is right about here. I tried so many ways to consistently avoid this grab, like rolling through, which fails because its model's collision is no joke. So I tried rolling to the left, but you will notice something. Every time I roll left, it's able to twist and boost to my position, making it nearly impossible to escape. I could not find an answer to why whenever I rolled right, the damn thing didn't have enough juice to catch me, and it always worked. That or that side of the mouth doesn't have collision, allowing you to roll through as you see right here. So the answer is to roll right, but there is nothing I could find in the event graph, attack parameters, the model, or anything to indicate why that is. I am open to suggestions. Other sources of beef I saw were his projectile attacks, which just spawn and go flying everywhere, seemingly willy-nilly. Realistically, I didn't mind them. They don't do very much damage, and you can usually just haul ass away from them anyway. But that grab attack? That shit haunts my dreams. Midra, Lord of Frenzied Flame. Mr. Burns has never been more intimidating. What a deadly barrage of lethal attacks. Truly the final boss of the game. Well, never mind. Phase 2 of Midra is slightly more challenging than Phase 1. I personally love this boss because I felt like you took damage pretty fairly. A lot of Frenzied Flame attacks are more about building up frenzy than dealing damage, allowing a push and pull of that status bar, as opposed to everything banking on your ability to precisely dodge a near one-shot AoE attack. But where things get a little tricky is these little beauties. I know for a fact that you got hit over and over again by this shit. He puts 3 swings within a 56 frame window right after a 104 frame windup. He also can put 2 attacks within a 40 frame window after a whopping 126 frame windup. That mixed in with burst frenzy attacks and the occasional grandpa slice, then you have a tempo changing demon on your hands. I personally really liked learning this boss, but I could see how some people would want this done to their brain after fighting him. Divine Beast Dancing Lion. This thing humbles everyone at the start of the DLC. Not just because of its difficulty, but because you're actually getting kicked in the head by a theater kid. The boss is just 2 guys in one costume, and we all know from this who the second guy is. A little piece of lore in your frame data video. Who knew? But beyond that, this guy is just about what you would expect. A lot of his attacks are simply variations of other moves with a different damage type and special effects, but it is fun to chance it and try to just barely walk through his spinning attack. But overall, nothing much to really see here other than a well-built beauty. FromSoft's A-team was on this one. Rellana has quite a few interesting quirks, the first of which being the safe zones right in front of her. On several of her one-arm swings, if you can position yourself right in front of her as close as possible, they will just miss. Her ranged ice special move also, in addition to being obviously pretty cool to watch in slow motion, but if you can run in on her when it starts, then it's the most useless attack in the game, and she has to go through the entire thing. She could have anticipated you coming in so close, but never could have anticipated you falling in love. Parry timings. They're earlier than you think, and they're everywhere. In previous Souls games, I've seen advice saying to click parry when the attack hits you, but in Elden Ring, look how early the parry window is. See that little C on the event graph? The one that says, get parried. That one? That is when she can be parried, nowhere near when the weapon is hitting you. In-game, it ends up looking like this. You can start your parry animation even when the sword is on the other side of her body. You can see where it registers on the swing right here. I think the reason for this seems to be how freakishly fast Elden Ring attacks are compared to previous Souls games. Your parry animation is much slower than how fast boss attacks are in this game. So in order to time it out so that your animation does this when their weapon hits you, you have to parry earlier and earlier. For most cases, it seems you aren't timing your parry input with when the attack hits you. You're actually timing your parry animation to do this when the attack would be hitting you. So it starts earlier. That's what I did, and I literally became Parry the Platypus. Also, look how many opportunities you have to parry on a long combo like this. Parry, 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 6 times in one combo. So as a good old swordy boss, she is everything you're looking for. And then this stuff starts coming out.
Oh my goodness!
That is a beefy hit capsule. Her phase 2 introduces some very cool and very powerful special moves that are a lot of fun to watch. Her 2 Moon Slam, though, in particular, is notorious, but actually gets completely trivialized if you know to jump instead of roll. You'll see on this attempt, I roll at a reasonable time, but still get easily clipped. Then this jump attempt is smooth sailing on all 3 of them. This is because this attack also does not affect you when you are in a jumping animation, an animation that is much longer than the 13 invincibility frames of a roll. So rolling through it is possible, but jumping through it is a breeze. Messmer. Messmer's flame attacks are the real MVP in this fight, even massively extending the range of his weapon. Also, I'm guessing this large circle hitbox around his shoulder was to prevent the same thing happening to him that you can do to Rellana. Also, I think it's a nice touch that hit detectors on his flame projectiles expand as they go like a growing flame. Just watch out for his grab attack. But obviously, the big phase 1 challenge is this bad boy. This one is a challenge because it makes use of the boost root motion and twist modifier functions, so you can't roll back or to the side. So similar to Melania's waterfowl dance, a well-timed roll under should trivialize the entire move. Now, once he gets to phase 2, there are a couple quirks to it that I never realized. The first being that the snake has eyes all over its body, including in its mouth, which brings a whole new meaning to watching what you eat. But more disturbing than that is how far ahead of the model the hit capsule is on its bite attacks. It's perfectly normal for a hit detector to be larger than the weapon for a practical purpose, but this seems kind of unnecessary. Overall, I really liked fighting Messmer, and eventually you kind of just get used to the timings of an attack, even if they're not exactly within the fractions of a second that would be technically accurate. Mytr, Mother of Fingers. Last video, some people said, lay off all the jokes.
Nope.
But how am I supposed to do that when it looks like it does? I simply don't have the mental fortitude to not make jokes, so buckle up. I promise it'll be quick. For the basic melee attacks, this thing is like every guy that gets a Magnum condom. Its misshapen chode of a finger doesn't even fit in the capsule's height, but at the same time is too short for its length. Also, when I bought the DLC, I did not expect to get absolutely finger blasted, but here we are, boys and girls. And lastly, this move is just a rendering of what happens in my shorts when I dunk on you fools. But alright, I got it out of my system, back to frame data. There are hefty hit detectors on her body that caught me off guard over and over because I was more concerned about her finger weapon. Her body hitbox is often the sneaky threat, like in this attack. She throws particles around as she jumps like a distraction before she drops like a rock on your head. And she's a big old girl at that. But for someone called the Mother of Fingers, the actual normal finger attacks are pretty chill. And despite the sheer scale of this attack, it is super easy to dodge, but still very satisfying to see from a bird's eye view. Someone who knows more about lore can tell us what the symbol means, probably something to do with fingers. Now, when phase 2 rolls around, things get a little out of hand, no pun intended. The two main attacks I see concerns over are first this spinning attack. It is a real bitch at first, and it obviously can't be parried, but with certain fingers not having hit detection, it can be skadooshed. But it's a frame perfect input, so instead putting yourself directly under and rolling through it is your best bet at running into as few hit detections as possible, or just shield it like a big beefy boy. But eventually she whips out the big guns, which we will appreciate from a safe distance. And then I'll show you what I've learned up close. Honestly, I would not suggest even attempting to dodge through the mega lasers. I tried several times and failed miserably every single time, and the laser is not a bullet spawn, it's actually a continuous hitbox, so you will not get lucky. Instead, running to and back from the outer edge of the central AoE attack allows you to thread the needle to avoid the laser altogether. That's a key point with this boss entirely. Just straight up running or shielding through certain attacks is a better call than rolling. Commander Gaius, or Gaius, or Gaius, I don't know. At any rate, let's start with the simple stuff and then we'll build up. His stomp attack is deceptive because you're thinking about the tusks, but instead, time your dodge to when the feet hit, and you're gonna dodge both. Also, what's weird is I expected there to be a hit detector on this tusk upswing, but no, you good. Also, the little gravity orb he sends in phase 2 doesn't have any hit detection on it. Still don't stand in it, but also don't worry about touching it. Now, eventually he will whip this move out, which is objectively a massive flex, but it has to be one of the sharpest boost root motion values I have ever seen. This is the attack at 10% speed, and watch the speed change when that second boost root motion is called. This is what it looks like in game. The thing absolutely dive bombs at you. It'll catch you off guard if you don't know that it speeds up like that. And now for the cherry on top, the charge attack. I'm going to try to explain why it feels inconsistent sometimes. Buckle up because this gets technical, but I think I've got it. So initially I tested side rolls. Both left and right failed for the same reasons they fail on other charge attack enemies. They can simply out twist you. So side rolls aren't going to cut it, so rolling straight through it is. Now, ignoring the immersion breaking aspect of phasing your entire body through a charging boar, watch these 2 roll attempts and try and see if you can catch why the first roll fails and the second succeeds. Did you catch it? I'll go over it. So the jankiness of this attack lies in this tailing hit capsule. What's bizarre is that these hit detectors are being spawned, rooted in place, and then despawning after 2 frames. They are not connected to any kind of socket on the boss and are not traveling with him. The problem with that is in 1 frame, this is the total distance your roll needs to clear. And then in the next frame, the tailing capsule despawns, and now it's only this distance your roll needs to clear. So sometimes it seems like not getting clipped at the end seems to depend on the RNG of whether that tailing hit detector despawns when you get to it or not. Why they didn't just attach a hit capsule to the boar itself as it charges is a mystery to me. You could just get good and nail the roll with optimal timing every time. But just from a design standpoint, am I taking crazy pills? Why would you do it like this? If you have ideas or I'm totally wrong on something and I'm missing it, I would love to hear it. Christian Bayle The Dread. Honestly, his body transformations for rolls has peaked here. 5 bags of popcorn. But all right, Oscar picks aside, this boss has very little wonkiness, but a lot of the craziest AoE attacks in the game. The oddest thing about him though is this tail sweep. It starts out way outside the capsule, and I thought it was going to even out as the animation proceeded, but not so much. His bite attack also is at least well telegraphed, and even though it is a big old trigger area, it's really only 12 frames, and half those frames is him closing the distance to you, so you can see you can roll pretty far away and still end up totally fine. Beyond that, his phase 1 is what you would expect for a couple fire attacks that look really intimidating for those who don't know what is coming. Phase 2 is absolutely bonkers. Almost all of his attacks have residual explosions, like these, and these, and good lord, these. And of course, it wouldn't be Elden Ring without an insanely cool-ass attack that inevitably finishes in a fiery explosion rivaled only by a Taco Bell bathroom. Lastly, remember when we thought Halo 3 was peak gaming graphics, and now sit back and enjoy this. Oh, one funny thing before we move on here. After all that, they put a little hitbox on his 1 foot when he lands. I'm sorry if you successfully dodged all the flames just to get toe tapped and killed. That sucks. And now for what I expected to be one of the biggest challenges for most gamers, Consort Radahn. In true final boss fashion, he has some decent sized hit capsules on his swords, making him a real challenge to just run away from. He'll almost always tag a run away with these big boys. His gravity pull attack is also entirely unavoidable without a well-timed roll. But what I do love is even if you get pulled in, the slam attack grows out from the impact zone. This means if you get pulled in, you can simply run or roll away, making it a bit more dynamic of a move than just an explosion. Another favorite of mine is this spinning meteor smash. It just has the gravitas you want without being overbearing, and even as Consort Radahn, he is still a tryhard and swings his sword at the end of a massive meteor smash. Oh, and then also a little optimization I learned from beating pre-nerf Consort Radahn. Yes, you heard me, pre-nerf. It was ridiculous. But this bloody slash looks more intimidating than it actually is, especially in phase 1, where it has a actually very small explosion. It gets bigger in phase 2, but you'll notice either way, you can sneak around the back and get a hit in. I had a ton of fun learning phase 1 Consort Radahn, and then phase 2 happened. When I saw this attack, I thought I was playing a parody of Elden Ring. The final boss just T-posed and fucking exploded. If this isn't just a deep self-aware troll from Elden Ring, I don't know what is. The fight is a non-stop barrage of hit capsules cascading out from every attack from phase 1. For this attack in particular, his two-hand slash only lasts 3 frames, while the aftershock and echoes of it last for 26. The game has some mercy though, in that the phantoms that precede certain attacks actually have a smaller hitbox than the final swing. And there is a case to be made that they move the hitbox behind the weapon as a way to allow you to roll later, because this isn't even remotely close to the model. They did that specifically on this outrageous combo. For me, I always get caught by that final explosion, and here's why. He quickly jerks up, which causes most players to immediately roll, thinking the explosion is happening. But he struggles for 13 frames to get the swords out of the ground. Your roll lasts for 13 frames, so if you get tricked by that initial yank up, you're going to get nailed by the actual explosion once he does pull the sword out. Tricky bastards. Also, attacks like this seem terrifying until you realize he has no hit detection or collision at the start, and you can just walk into him and avoid all this entirely. Regardless, the big guy is inescapable, as hit detection is sometimes so big it's outside the arena. I couldn't even capture this all in one shot. And now for the grand finale of the game, and this entire video. This. Up he goes into the heavens, way, way, way up there. And then he just disappears. And then Merry Christmas, a star is born. There he is, watching over us. He has come to spread love and joy to all the world. The Holy Book of Radahn reads, "Good luck dodging this, you stupid little man." And if you manage to survive everything in this video, you have ascended past Elden Lord and have earned the exalted title of Gamer. Starting next year, I'm working on Dark Souls 2, but if you liked the video, remember to like, comment, and subscribe so you can see more. But as always, thanks for watching.